we've got everybody. This is the call for the meeting for the Pima County Board of Adjustment District 1 meeting of April 4th, 2022. If everybody would you please repeat with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Would the recording secretary please read the roll call?
Mr. Green,
Present.
Miss Ballantyne,
Present.
Mr. Call,
Present.
Chair Wildblood.
Present.
Mr. Chair, let the record show we have a quorum and Mr. Roussat is absent.
Very good. May we have the reading of the first case description, please?
Yes. Oh, and this is a reminder to everyone on the call to please mute your phones until it's ready for your time to speak. All right. P22VA00004 at Ease Property Group Trust, West Sage Street. At Ease Property Group Trust on property located at 1460 West Sage Street in the SH Suburban Homestead Zone requests a variance to reduce the front yard setback to 47 feet for a proposed guest house and a variance to allow the guest house to be served by a separate driveway. And then if it's okay, I'll move on to a summary of the staff report.
That's okay.
All right. So it's the subject site is located west of North La Cañada Drive and north of West Sage Street. It's generally surrounded by developed single residences. As of the writing of the staff report, staff has not received any comments for the variance. There has been a previous case on the property, which was a modification of setback requirements for a reduction to the front yard setback for the guest house, which was applied and protested by a noticed neighbor. The subject property is approximately 1.23 acres. It's part of the Mesa Land subdivision, which was recorded in 1956. So the proposed guest house in question was built back in the 1970s as a utility storage building, and it also has a 305 square foot carport. The guest house will be a total of 652 square feet with that 347 square foot utility storage building and that carport. The reduced setback will not interfere with site visibility nor create a new nuisance to the neighborhood. According to aerial photography, there's a driveway on the western portion of the property that's existing, and since there's a provision requiring guest houses to have the same access as a house, the Board of Adjustment must consider the second driveway since it's within their purview to determine whether or not the second driveway may be allowed. Transportation actually gave me feedback saying that since Sage Street's a collector road, they'd recommend potentially removing that said driveway. And then going back to the MSR, the reason that the neighbor protested was due to they think that other owners would be allowed to build closer to the road in the future, and that the modification would ruin the aesthetics of their street, where all homes have obeyed the setback requirements. Staff's recommendation is approval of the variance because it's the minimum necessary to afford relief. since the existing storage building has been permitted and was built in the 1970s, and the proposed 47 setback is also more than the required 30-foot front yard setback for the main dwelling in that district. And the variance does not allow use which is not permitted in the BOA code, since guest houses are permitted in residential and rural lots. And that concludes the staff report.
Do the board members have any questions of staff at this time?
I have one question. Is the driveway a second approval, or is the approval of the second driveway part of the guest house approval itself?
So the whole variance includes two separate requests. So it's required to be either approved or denied as part of this project.
So my confusion is, you just added that transportation recommendation related to the second driveway request, and so is it possible to approve the guest house without the second driveway approval?
Yes, because they can use the existing driveway on the eastern portion of the lot instead, and not use the western driveway at all.
Yes, Kelly, I believe that if we discuss this, we can actually make a motion that would either take the driveway out or even take out the guest house. But when a motion is made, certain stipulations can be put in there. Are there any other questions of staff?
Yes, this is Richard Green. Did transportation elaborate on what their concern was about the second driveway?
They just said that since it's a collector street, they don't want too many access points, but I've seen through aerial imagery that there are multiple properties on the street that have either 2 or 3 access points. So that's why I recommended approval, but that's all that they said regarding their review.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions from of staff at this point in time? Okay, is the applicant present?
Yes, I'm present.
Could you please state your name and address?
Yes, my name is Mariana Watts, 10,001 North Placita, Papalote, 85737.
Thank you.
Right, if you would you please explain what your purpose is of this variance?
Yes, so there's an existing building, like it was mentioned, and we want to convert the building is 347 square foot building, and it's attached to that building is a carport. But the building of 347 square foot, we want to convert in a little casita. I was listening also to that separate driveway. There is a horseshoe kind of driveway to the property, and so that driveway is already existent to the small storage area. And so we just want to convert that into a guest house, and it's already existing. Everything, that was already existing. We just need a variance approval.
Are there any questions by the board of the applicant?
This is Bruce Call. I have a quick question. It appears that from the drawing that was presented, as well as from the aerial photo, that the so-called second driveway is not referring to the horseshoe-type driveway, but rather to that kind of a dirt driveway that exists further to the west. Is it your intent to keep that dirt driveway further to the west in use, or is it your intent to do away with that?
We can do away with that. Yeah, there's no reason. There's that already existing driveway. It can be used for that guest house. So no, we can do away with the dirt driveway.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce.
Is there anybody else in the audience to speak in favor of this variance? That being the case, I don't think there is anybody else in favor of it. Is there anybody in the audience to speak against this variance?
Yes. Hello, I'm Rebecca Bruno, representing Linda Bruno, who resides at 1451 West Sage Street and protesting this variance. The reason, can I just go ahead?
Would you go ahead?
The reason that we're protesting the variance, Linda Bruno is the one who did not sign the signature page that that At Ease property was bringing around. The reason for this being is because when a representative from At Ease property came to her residence, they requested her son, who answered the door, Jason Bruno, to go ahead and sign on her behalf. He is not on the deed, and on that signature page, it solely states Linda Bruno as being the deed holder of the property. My question to the board is, have you verified that all the signatures that you have on the MSR are the actual deed holders? How do you know that their sons or daughters weren't asked to sign that form? And also, I would like to point out that for a document to be enforceable by both parties must agree to the same terms. The agreement must be consensual, and the mark of approval almost always in the form of a signature, which is not what's happening here. The original document that was for the signature page that was provided to the neighbors in the surrounding area, dated January 31st, 2022, states only one of the variants, which there's discrepancies in the verbiage of the variance. It says the front yard setback for 60 feet to 47.80 for an existing accessory building. The letter that we received to schedule this meeting for the Pima County Board of Adjustment states a variance to reduce the front yard setback to 47 feet for a proposed guest house. So they changed an accessory building, now it's being stated as a guest house. And also, they added a variance to allow the guest house to be served by a separate driveway. When you change the terms of a document, don't you have to go back and get the signatures of the other people that you already previously received? It doesn't match up here. You're trying to add in the separate driveway onto this variant application that none of the neighbors have signed for. And I've actually spoken with a couple neighbors in the neighborhood, and they were unaware of this separate driveway being a variance allowed onto this meeting today. So the major concern that I have is that at Eastman Property Group is that they've taken the signature page that they received on January 31st, 2022, and now they're just going to add other variants on and other terms on. And also, that driveway that does exist right there, it's just dirt. No one uses it. And the street is very populated. It's a school. There's Mesa Verde Elementary School down at the end of the road. So to put in another driveway right there, that could cause like a lot of accidents for the fact that between the hours of 7 and 8, it's very, parents dropping their kids off, and also from 2 to 3. So I just ask that the board, reject this request on the fact that At Ease property is, I feel, committing fraudulent stuff by having, you know, not all the neighbors in the area knowing about the document or the variance changes. Who's to say it's not going to happen in the future? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience speak against this variance? That being said, close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Is there a motion? Is Mr. Cole making a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
I'll
Would you agree?
second. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, this is Tom Drzgowski. Can I just make a comment about the process?
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, just to kind of talk about the different processes here. It looks like we had an MSR and now we have a variance. So MSRs are processes where property owners go out and either get neighbor written approval or we do a mailing. And I don't believe anything fraudulent happened here. I think, you know, the applicant probably didn't know who the owner was at the time, you know, so we verify all that stuff during the process. And ultimately that MSR process ended in a protest, so it's no longer valid, and that's why we're here today in front of the variance. And ultimately what I heard from the applicant, I think, was that they don't need the second access point. So I just wanted to clarify that two separate processes. Staff verifies all that stuff when it comes in, and so we wouldn't allow someone to authorize an MSR unless it truly was the owner or someone authorized to sign on the owner's behalf.
Very good. Can I have some discussion by the board members of this?
Well, first off, I think we have a motion on the table for closing the public hearing.
Correct. Would you, it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Green?
Aye.
Right now, we can have some discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to just jump in here with a couple of comments. I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, that and also with what Tom said, in as much as the applicant has indicated that they're not using that dirt driveway and that would be abandoned, I think it would be very appropriate for that to be excluded then from the approval if such approval were to take place. And then additionally, the idea of the 0.2 of a foot difference in the notification, I suspect that although 0.2 of a foot is almost 3 inches, that measuring something like this from a street that does not have curb and gutter and an identified center line, I suspect that 0.2 of a foot is within what would be normally considered acceptable tolerance in this kind of a rural setting. So I don't have any objection to that, and I feel like that point is not applicable in this case. Other than that, I don't have any other comments, and I'm generally not in opposition to this variance request.
Ms. Valentine, do you have any comments?
I agree with everything that Mr. Call stated. I would concur that the second driveway, in viewing it, the aerial view in particular, the second driveway to me is not an existing driveway. It's just an area that people have repeatedly driven their car to take things to the back of the property, but it's not a driveway. So the addition of that driveway, I am not leaning to support that.
Mr. Green, do you have any comments?
Well, only that it looks like it's therefore, after the fact, just making proper the structure that's already built. so that, it brings it into conformity with the requirement of meeting the variance given the neighborhood restrictions and the 40-plus-year-old existing structure. So, and I also agree that if we can just avoid the issue of approving the second driveway, then this is a pretty benign request.
I agree.
Let me make one other observation that I think is a subtle but important part of what this is. They're proposing to change the use from being a utility structure to a guest house. So I think that is what is precipitating this request, because it's from what I understand from the staff report, it was approved as a utility building way back when, and so now by virtue of change of use, it goes through the process again. I think that this is actually something that should be lauded for what the applicant has done, because more often than not, when the building is already there, they don't even go through the process and they just do it. And so I really appreciate them adhering to the process in change of use.
Well said, Mr. Cole. Well, can I have a motion to either approve or disapprove or amend? Mr. Cole?
I move to approve P22VA00004 at Ease Property Group TR on West Sage Street, with the condition that the second separate driveway not be included in this variance approval. That is not to be construed as doing away with the horseshoe driveway, but rather what appears to be a dirt access.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Can I have a roll call vote to approve the motion of Mr. Cole excluding the driveway?
Yes. Mr. Green?
Approved?
Miss Valentine?
Approve.
Mr. Call?
Approve?
Chair Wildblood?
Approve.
The motion has passed and been approved 4-0.
On another note, I appreciate, as Mr. Cole does, the fact that the applicant made an effort to follow the rules. May we have the second case report?
P22VA00005 Velasquez North Sonia Way. Dwayne Velasquez, on property located at 7241 North Sonia Way in the CR1 Single Residence Zone, requests a variance to allow a cargo container without a commercial development plan for a proposed guest house. And I'll start with the staff report summary, if that's okay.
Fine, thank you.
Okay. So the subject site is located west of North Sonia Way, north of East Ina Road. It's surrounded by developed single residences with the westward look Wyndham Resort to the west of the property. As of writing this staff report on March 28th, actually as of today, staff has received 17 total protest letters, and then 1 letter from a neighbor that has no objection, and then 1 letter of support for the proposed project. Generally, the protest letters contain comments about how the cargo container did not fit in with the aesthetics of the neighborhood, and that there were deed restrictions from allowing the cargo container on the property. There have not been any previous variances on the property. And then the property is about 28,000 square feet. It's in the Westward Look Heights subdivision, recorded in 1977. It has a 2,563 square foot detached home built in the 90s. It also has a pool and solar panels. The owner is proposing to install 320 square foot cargo container, which is to be converted into a guest house on the property. The site plan demonstrates that the proposed guest house meets all of the standards of the guest house section of the Pima County Zoning Code, except for the use of the cargo container. Per the owner, they said that rising construction costs make it impossible to accomplish the same result and cost with traditional materials. Staff recommends denial of this variance request because it's not in harmony with the general intent and purposes of the code and provision from which the variance is requested, since the subdivision is full of site-built homes and a cargo container does not appear to be compatible with surrounding properties' residential uses due to its industrial type construction. Also, the unnecessary hardship does arise from a condition created by the action of the owner of the property, since guest houses are supposed to be site-built with traditional building materials. And lastly, the variance does seem to cause injury and adversely affect the rights of surrounding property owners and residents due to the number of protests from noticed neighbors. And that concludes the staff report.
Right, is the applicant present on the line to present the case?
Yeah, this is Dwayne Velasquez. Good evening, or good afternoon, sorry.
Would you be sworn in, please? State your address and name for the record.
Yes, my name is Dwayne Velasquez. Address is 7241 North Sonia Way, Tucson, Arizona, 85704.
Thank you.
Very good. Please proceed.
Yeah, so my proposal is to place it is a cargo trailer, but we will be modifying the aesthetics on the outside with vegetation and or stucco, to match what my home looks like now. If you look on for a description, or not a description, but a view on Exhibit B of the plans that we put together, the cargo container will be on the east side of my backyard. And if you look at the aerial picture, and you zoom in where that's going to be placed, it's not going to obstruct anybody from the front. It's not going to obstruct my neighbor that's right there, because you can't see over my wall as it is already, where I'm going to be placing this cargo trailer. And on the aerial view, you'll also see that there's about a 20-foot shed there. I've already removed that. So that's where it's going to be. That's where I like to propose to place it. So it's not going to obstruct anybody's vision from their home, from the street. It's going to look professionally done. In fact, I hired a company, CubeSmart, which is on the line as well, to develop the plans and submit for all the permits. I've already started doing beautification projects to my home. This is just one of many that I've started, or I'd like to start, since I moved in late in the year, or late of last year, beginning of this year. And that's pretty much it for right now. I guess I can add, I didn't know that there were CCRs, but that's no excuse. And when I did find out that there were, I was told by one of the neighbors that I need to get permission from the agriculture committee, but he stated it hasn't been in existence for over 15 to 20 years, so there is no committee to get an approval from. So that's where it leads me up to today with talking with you today.
Very good. Does the board have any questions of the applicant?
This is Bruce Call. Mr. Velasquez, as I look at what it is that's being proposed there, I'm also concerned with what it is that I see, even though you've identified you're potentially going to try to do some things to fix up the outside. But I don't see anything in the form of a foundation for it. It shows inside there's going to be restroom facilities, and so that means you've got underground utilities associated with it. By the time you put in some type of a foundation and some underground utilities and other things for it, that's a substantial part of the cost. And why not go? I mean, this is going to not have a positive impact on your property necessarily. So why not do it right so that you benefit from it? You can connect it to the house. You can do all kinds of nice things that would make it. Is there something more than I'm hearing of just dollars and cents?
Yeah, let me let the company CubeSmart talk, because all of the items that you discussed is part of the proposed plan. It will be tied into utilities, sewer, and everything that you mentioned. I believe they're on the line as well.
Yes, my name is Adam Burkhalter. I'm with CubeSpace, and to address that concern, absolutely the plans call for concrete footings to be placed appropriately around the base of the structure. As Mr. Velasquez pointed out, it will be connected to the existing electrical, existing water, existing sewer. So no new utilities will need to be brought in, or no adjustments to the existing utilities. And if I may, I understand I understand that the neighborhood's concerns primarily seem to stem from the fact that this property is being let out as a vacation rental. And so I think, unfortunately, that reduces the number of objections that are, in my opinion, valid regarding the use of a shipping container. And really, I think these issues have more to do with the fact that Mr. Velasquez occasionally rents the property out on the vacation rental sites, Airbnb, VRBO. So I feel like we have that one issue that shouldn't be overlooked, because I think that the number of actual objections related to the fact that this is a shipping container are greatly reduced. And if I may also say, the fact that it's a shipping container really does not impact the ability of this structure to house somebody or to accomplish all of the things that a traditional stick-built building accomplishes. In fact, most would argue that it's much more stable, it's much less penetrable when it comes to pests, rodents, water damage, so on and so forth. It's cork steel. So as opposed to plywood and different things like that, pressure treated or not, I don't think anyone can really argue that with proper maintenance, cork steel is less of a ideal material than wood. So Mr. Velasquez has amended the plans to appease some of the issues or concerns that neighbors have voiced, which relates to the exterior. And as I'm sure the committee has noticed, the proposed site of the structure sets really far back. And so driving by, you would have to stop, turn your head, and really look back there to be able to see it from the street. So I don't feel like visibility concerns from the street are valid or just either. Furthermore, we're looking at, again, introducing stucco. Siding, of course, is an option, but wouldn't fit with the aesthetic in the neighborhood, so stucco makes the most sense. And you would never know that this was constructed out of a shipping container once it was complete.
Very good. Thank you for your explanation. And is there anybody else in the audience at this point in time that would speak in favor of this? That being said, there's a number of people, I think, on the docket that would like to speak against granting this variance. And I would ask that those people come up, speak your name and address and address your concerns, but I am going to limit the time for people to voice their objections to approximately 2 minutes. The first person up voice their concern. Step forward.
Well, this is Bob Hagan. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Bob. There you go.
Yes, my name is Bob Hagan, and I live at 7311 North Sonia Way. It is the third house north of the variance requested home. What I'd like to do is clarify a couple of things that I think are very misleading here. The first one is that there is no agricultural committee. We have, and it was put in place with the CC&Rs, we have what they call an architectural control committee. Now, we haven't been actively staffing it for a number of years because the development has been fully developed out. Up until recently, we haven't had any need to have it staffed. We are in process of actually staffing it. We would, in fact, review any kind of request such as Mr. Valescas is trying to make. And the committee is, in fact, in place, is part of the CCRs and has never been done away with. Second thing I'd like to point out that the applicant has indicated to me on a number of conversations that he was unaware of CCRs and CC&Rs in the neighborhood. And yet I contacted the title company that handled the transaction for him in November of last year, and they told me that they were aware of the CCRs, and it was their understanding they were made available to the purchaser. The third thing I'd like to clarify is that the location is not on the east side of the yard. The location of the 35-foot cargo container that's supposed to be a pool house, and yet it has a bedroom and a bathroom and a kitchen and a living room. It's on the south side of the property, and it's very close to the neighbor to the south. In fact, it's very close to his property line. So I think that's misleading. We had 29 folks comment. These are the recorded property owners for the Westward Look Heights, and 27 of those objected or submitted unsupportive comments. I do think there's a real concern that any approval of this would set a precedent, and we don't think that's a proper type of precedent to have in our neighborhood. So I'm going to just say that we're opposed to it. We would appreciate a denial of this request. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob, for your comments. And Bob, recognize going forward, with the age of these houses, there are a number of people going forward who are going to be doing remodeling in the future. So your architectural committee should be up, in my opinion, having been.
I agree with you.
Right. Is Nancy Johnson on the phone? Would she like to speak to this?
Yes, I'm Nancy Johnson.
State your name and address, please.
Nancy Johnson at 7430 North Michelle Place. And I'm against this variance. I feel it won't be good for our neighborhood. I feel it'll set a precedent that we do not want in this area.
Is that all?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Is John Rowley in the audience? Apparently not. Is there anybody else that would like to speak against this variance?
This is Brian Smalley.
State your name and address, please, for the record.
Brian Smalley, 7401 North Avenida de Lisa, 85704.
Okay, sir, speak your piece.
I just want to affirm with the others that we don't want to set a precedent where containers in the future are going to be scattered here and there through the neighborhood. One in particular might look nice, but then we have to go over it again and again for each one. I'd rather not have any containers to begin with. And that's it. Thank you.
Very good. Any other comment?
Yes, this is Renee Farrell.
Say your name again, name and address.
My name is Renee Farrell, and my address is 7280 North Sonia Way.
Hey, Renee, speak your piece.
Yeah, I just want to echo what everybody said in the neighborhood. I just ask you to deny this request. It doesn't fit with the neighborhood. It's a detached house, and it just doesn't fit. And then, according to our CCRs that we received when purchasing the houses in the development, those are not allowed in the area. Thank you.
It seems like we're having a repeat of many of the same comments. Unless somebody has something significantly different to say, if you do, please speak forward at this time.
If I may just make a brief sort of rebuttal to, this is Adam again with CubeSpace, I apologize. I just want to be very,
Adam?
I would just like to, yes, sir.
Adam, hang on a second.
Okay.
Being no others to speak against this, I would ask the applicant to do a rebuttal on some of this, or his representative.
Yeah, this is Dwayne. I'd like Adam to speak with. I just wanted to just say one thing. Mr. Hagan earlier stated that I knew that there were CCRs. No, I didn't know it. Also, the title company, it took a span of a week for them to find the CCRs and then notify me after Mr. Hagan, expressed to me that there were some. So I just wanted to clarify that. I wasn't going into this pretending like I didn't know. I honestly did not know. But I appreciate Mr. Hagan taking a vested interest in my property, and thank you. I'll let him speak now.
All right, Adam.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that, Dwayne. Yes.
Adam, I need your name and address, please.
Oh, sure. So Adam Burkhalter, my home address, I'm not one of the residents. I'm with CubeSpace.
Your home address, please.
Sure, 13571 East Diablo Creek Drive, and that's Vail, Arizona, 85641.
Very good, thank you.
So just to clarify a couple of points, and yes, like Mr. Velasquez said, there were I think just some misnomers. It wasn't an attempt to be misleading. The location of the unit on the property, it's per the plans. It's on the south side of the property, so nothing was, no attempts to mislead anybody were done intentionally. But the other thing is, and I'd like if the board would please kind of reinforce this. This does not set a precedent that will allow rusted, battered shipping containers to be scattered all over people's properties. The allowance of one variance has no impact on anybody else in that neighborhood wanting to request a container to be converted into a pool house or sleeping quarters, etc. Anybody wanting to do this would have to go through the same process. They would have to have plans professionally done. They would have to professionally build this structure, and they would have to take into consideration comments by the neighbors regarding the aesthetics. So this doesn't open the gates to stacked shipping containers being loaded up in people's backyards. Can I just get confirmation from the board on that point?
Mr. Chair, this is Tom Druzgowski. No variance approval sets precedent on any other variance. Each one's based on the merits of each individual case, so hopefully that clarifies.
Neil,
Thank
stand up.
you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Green.
Mr. Chairman, this is Bob Hagan at 7311 North Sonia Way again. I would just like to state further that I did contact the prior owner to the property, and he said he was aware of CC&Rs. In fact, it was his understanding that they were provided to all the prospective purchasers ahead of the sale. The applicant also explained to me that the reason he bought the property was that the listing said that there were no CC&Rs on the property. I've gone back and looked at the listing, and I can't find anything that states that. So I think he is being misleading, and with just about everything he's commented to me, he's been misleading.
I can't.
Mr. Hagan, I'll give you.
Mr. Chair, this is Tom Drzgowski. Can I jump in here real quick?
Yes, Tom.
The public participation has already concluded, so anyone that's already spoken other than the applicant, their time has already been extinguished. So I think if the applicant would finish their part, that would be the next thing to do. This isn't, the public hearing isn't an opportunity for people to continue to chime in. Thank you.
This is strictly Adam's part, and he has 1 minute left.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I'd like to say everything else excluded, CC&Rs and the like. There are guest houses on properties in that development, and so guest houses are not the question, right? Whether or not a guest house is allowed, because we've established, and I again would request a confirmation that guest houses are in fact allowed per the county and zoning requirements and all of that. The question is whether or not a shipping container that's cladded in stucco to match exactly what every home in there has on their exterior is a problem. I guess that's the question, and why it's a problem. And I think we've established that nobody is really giving us any good, clear answers as to why a container that looks nothing like a container and serves the purpose of a guest house should not be allowed. Nothing further. Thank you, guys.
Very good. Can I have
Mr. Chairman?
Who is this
Hello?
speaking?
My name is James Just. I am a neighbor and an owner in the area. I understand that this part of the hearing has been closed. However, I request an opportunity to speak briefly with regard to two definitional issues that have been raised in the rebuttal and were not present heretofore. May I speak briefly to those 2 points?
I am inclined to say no, because
Understood.
we've already had a series of discussions, whether you were on the phone or not.
I was.
Whether to approve or disapprove, and it was stated by a number of the neighbors, I think very well, including Nancy Johnson and Bob Hagan, as to some of the things that are against this. So I am not going to give you that. With that, I would ask that the public hearing be formally closed.
Mr. Chairman, it's Richard Green. May I ask one question of Adam before you close that part?
That would be acceptable.
Thank you. So I notice on Exhibit B that basically the access to the living quarters look like the big Connex doors that tells you what the structure is. Are there any other options besides those giant swing-open Connex doors?
Absolutely, and that's a great point. I apologize for not keying in on that. Those not only can they be removed completely, and French doors or sliding glass doors or even well done iron doors with glass. the options are really endless for what can be done with those. In fact, we could even, as much as we probably would like to, we could even change the orientation of the containers so that those cargo doors are in the rear, and then additionally remove them from the rear. So any element that says that this is a shipping container, by the way, a one-trip, brand new shipping container. The containers that we access are less than a year old, 99% of the time. So these are very, very high quality, nice containers that, again, we can sort of mask any indication that this is even a shipping container to begin with.
Okay, but since that's not the plan you submitted, were we to approve, we would have to mandate that you do something else. So, okay, but thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, no, my pleasure. And yeah, so the doors, so yes, the doors can definitely be removed and framed in to make, to be made to look just like, sliding glass doors or French doors on any traditional, stick-built building.
Very good. May I hear a motion to close the public?
Mr. Chairman, this is Bruce Call. I have a question for the applicant.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Mr. Velasquez, did you get title insurance with your property purchase?
I did, but they told me that, where I said I had no idea about this. The title insurance company said that these, and this is for verbatim, that this particular instance, these CCRs are not covered under title insurance.
Good.
That's what they stated to me when I found, because I was upset, and I was going to go in that direction, but they told me that that's not covered in title insurance.
I understand that. Okay, because if you did get title insurance, though, then it would be covered as part of your Schedule B, identifying that CCNRs exist, whether it was covered under their policy or not. So I think that puts at rest the question of CCNRs. You definitely, as a part of acquiring title insurance and having a title report done, you definitely should have been aware of and pursued those CCNRs. So that's all that I have, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Bruce, would you like to move to?
Yeah, I'd move to close the public hearing.
Second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of closing the public hearing? Aye. Aye. It's been moved, seconded, and approved to close the public hearing. All right, board, let's discuss this.
I'd like to jump in here a little bit. Sorry, Lynn, for jumping in early, but I think that really the key here, we're talking about they're going to of the opinion that the quality of construction or whatever is actually better than it might be from site built. I just assume not go in that direction. I believe that by virtue of the fact that they have CCNRs for that unless we get an approval from the CCNRs, this is an item that shouldn't necessarily even come before us, and it should be remanded back for CCNR approval. If their CCNRs, they can provide a case that their homeowners association buys off on, and their CCNRs buy off on by virtue of then it might be appropriate to be heard before us. But given the situation as it's been presented, I would propose that we remand it back to the homeowners association and to address the CCNR. In that regard, I guess I would have to suggest denial.
Well, my comment on this is that I'm fully aware of some of the container aspects about building and how they are becoming very popular, and that they are actually looking very good when they're multiples together. My real question is, why would this be outside the pool, that wall that surrounds the pool, where there could be a reasonable case for a small guest house to be built within that wall and adjacent inside the wall of the pool, surrounding the pool, versus right on a property line. I have to look at what staff has recommended, which is denial, and I think staff has got a very good handle on what these things are. And from a standpoint of the neighborhood, I would certainly agree that it's a CCNR problem. It probably never should have come to us, but it is. And it has come to us in the form of a variance request, at which point in time my feeling is to deny. Mr. Green, do you have any comments at this point?
Well, I think there's a lot of wisdom in what Mr. Call said, because the plan that we were presented does not have the options that would make it at least appear more consistent with the style of the neighborhood external finishings. And so, it's true the neighborhood would have to reconstitute its architectural approval committee, but I think that would be well worth it in this case. And, if we were a court, we could deny without prejudice, so to speak, so that they could come back if they've reached an accommodation with the formal neighborhood process. So, what we've got in Exhibit B doesn't really look like the neighborhood. And we've had some assurances that it could be, so it sounds like there's a potential path forward, but not with the plan we have.
Very good. Ms. Valentine, do you have anything to comment?
Well, I lean towards the majority of our discussion was related to the CCNRs, and in the world that I've always lived in, that's the first place you go. So I would lean towards a denial with the recommendation that the homeowners association review their architectural committee, review and come to some whatever conclusion, and then go forward.
I think there are options available to the applicant within the boundaries of that wall surrounding the pool, but I don't believe the container is the answer at this point in time. So anyway, can we have a motion to approve or deny from one of the board members, please? Mr. Call?
Regarding P22VA00005, Velasquez on North Sonia Way, I move to deny based on the items we have discussed.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Green?
Deny.
Miss Ballantyne?
Deny.
Mr. Call?
Deny.
Chair Wildblood?
Deny the applicant.
The motion to deny has passed 4-0.
Very good. May the secretary read the next case?
P22VA00006. Fidelity National Title Agency Inc. Trust 60466 on North Thornydale Road. Fidelity National Title Agency Inc. Trust 60466 on property located at 8505 North Thornydale Road in the CB1 local business zone requests a variance for one additional freestanding sign. I'm going to start the staff summary if that's all right.
Lauren, I'll do this because I wrote the report, right?
Right, that sounds good.
Okay, Mr. Chair, Tom Miskowski here. I did this staff report, so I'll just kind of give a brief overview. Site's on the northwest side of Tucson, in the intersection northwest corner of Cotero Farms and Thornydale. This is a project or a property that was approved many years ago. It's starting to be developed. The applicant's request is for an additional freestanding sign. Subject site is approximately 8.2 acres. The zoning is CB1. It's part of the Cotero Thornydale Commercial Center, which was recorded back in 2018. Property has an approved development plan, but construction really hasn't begun. Grading and some of the earlier improvements have. The site allows 3 freestanding signs, one at each access point. The owner is proposing to install an additional 50 square foot, 8 foot tall freestanding sign at the southeast corner of the property where the 2 roads meet. Staff doesn't necessarily have an objection to this request. I guess staff's only comment on this is it's really hard for us to provide a positive recommendation given the fact that development hasn't occurred there. We haven't seen what type of buildings and uses are going to be on the site. And so it's hard for us to support a variance when we don't really see the need because we don't have development occurring and we haven't seen whether or not the existing permitted or what will be allowed freestanding signs have really been extinguished and an additional sign is needed. That pretty much concludes our staff report, and I can answer any questions you may have.
So, Tom, this is Mr. Wildblood. You have no objections on what is being proposed here?
Yeah, I'm not sure we necessarily have an objection. We're not really in support either. I think this is really more of a question on timing, because it's really hard for us to say the 3 signs that exist or that would be allowed, nothing exists yet, but the 3 signs that would be allowed are not enough and a 4th one's needed. So I think it's more of a timing issue. We would want to see development occur, see what kind of uses we get, and then make an accurate and informed decision on whether an additional 4th sign would be needed. So for us, it's more of a timing issue than anything else.
Thank you. Is the applicant or his representative?
Mr. Chairman, I got a quick question.
Yes.
For Tom. This is Bruce Call. Tom, can you elucidate me as to what the county approach is for signs that identify a neighborhood? They're kind of often you see them on corners that identify a neighborhood subdivision or they identify a neighborhood. Is this, what is the county's thought on that? Is that treated the same as other signs? Or is that something that is addressed differently in the code?
Sure, yeah. Signs for subdivisions are treated differently. So it's in a subdivision, there's more portability, I would say. So if you have a residential subdivision, they're allowed X amount of signage. Where they put that, there's a little more flexibility in our rewrite of the code from a couple years ago. Commercial, or where there's an approved development plan, it's based on street frontage, how many access points you have. Now, we're always supportive of portability of signage, to locate it in the best location. But when we start getting into additional signs, we're really looking for the need and to make sure we can evaluate whether or not the need is there to allow an additional sign. As the board knows, I've been working with you guys for many years, and we're generally supportive of signs where we see the need for advertising and for allowing our small businesses and the businesses in the commercial centers to get the advertising and get their name out there where they need it. But I think we're more, I would say, not reactive, but we want to see how the commercial site develops before we start saying, yes, additional signage is needed.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Tom, this is Mr. Wildblood. On the same line as, and I know the applicant or his representative is going to be there. Since there is no development on this property right now, is it staff's concept right now that this is just an informational signage to be put up?
Mr. Chair, board members, I would have the applicant check that. The way I think we look at this is a fourth sign, and until we can demonstrate that 3 aren't enough, I'm just not sure the timing is appropriate. If in a year from now or 9 months from now, we're seeing, and I'm making up uses, 4 restaurants, a Walmart, 50 retail uses are in there, we can tell additional signage would be needed, and then we would be supportive of an additional signage that provides the necessary information, and for safe travels, to direct and inform drivers along Thornydale and Cotero. For us at this time, I think it's just hard for us to say that.
Okay, very good. Well,
Tom, one other, Mr. Chairman, I have a follow-on question, if I may.
And who is this, Bruce?
This is Bruce, yes.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Tom, if this is part of an overall signage plan for the whole 8 acres, and thereby a bunch of other signs that would otherwise the various commercial entities would be looking to put in, this kind of basically take the place of a bunch of other miscellaneous haphazard signs, I'd be inclined to think that this might be a good idea to have a whole sign plan for the subdivision. But if this is intended to be just one more sign and everybody else gets all their other signage, then I'm disinclined to go this way. So could you enlighten me on that, please?
Yeah, and I think, that's kind of how I'm thinking of it too when we crafted this is, you look at the signage, it's aesthetic, it looks nice, it's a great sign, in a location where there was a true need that we can document, something like this we're very supportive of. And I think we just want to be more careful as staff before we say, yes, board, we recommend approval. We think we're looking for more of the need. I think we went with no objection to give the applicant the opportunity to demonstrate that, and if the applicant's able to convince the board of the need right now, I think that's why we went with no objection. But looking at the sign, it's aesthetic, it looks nice, it would be an enhanced feature to the site. I'm sure it will help the future tenants that will be there, but it was just hard for us to kind of look that far down and say, yes, there's a need right now.
Very good. Right, the applicant or his representative is, I believe, on the line. If you would, please state your name and address, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wildblood, the members of the board. This is Mike Addis, 3808 East 38th Street, Tucson, Arizona, 85713. And I'll briefly go through the cursory overview and then let you ask questions. And what I'll do is I'll touch on what I call 4 points. And the first point that I would like to bring out is what I would call the flow and the traffic and the identification of the entrances. And so as we have worked with the property owner and we have worked with them to develop, and I appreciate what Bruce Cole is saying, a form of master sign program, we've brought to their attention the fact that the entrances, yes, need to be identified, but when you drive north and even south, but when you're driving north on Thornydale, you look over, you don't have a corner sign that is going to signify what is at the shopping center. And so that's why sign C is the added request. So that's number one. Number two, you are appropriately looking at what I would call a design consistency, a design layout, a low profile sign and colors that are going to mimic, in construction that's going to mimic what is on site. And again, this is part of what we're calling a master sign program in order to put a stamp on. I know that, yes, it's easier after the fact to look at a property and say this is what it should look like, and sometimes it's a little more difficult in advance of the development of the property to establish a look. But part of the goal that we have is to establish that look in advance of the property. The third item is, again, going back to the flow, because obviously identifying the entrances and identifying the tenant